Chapter 81. A light flashed between Lai Yunxiao's eyebrows and the black maiden sword appeared in his hand. He grabbed the hilt of the sword with both hands and stabbed it into the ground. Waves of suppressive force emanated from his body. His eyes revealed a hint of madness as he laughed maniacally and shouted, "Come on, let's see if your dragon tiger roaring spear is stronger or if my defense is stronger. Defensive style glass body." Under his frenzied fighting spirit, his body began to emit streams of light. His entire body seemed to become somewhat transparent, like a glass lamp. After practicing the tyrannical body tempering technique, the strength of the physical body would be divided into 3 levels, namely, glass body, overlord body, and indestructible golden body. After practicing the indestructible golden body tempering technique, one's physical body could directly become a sage. With a wave of his hand, the mountains would collapse and the earth would crack. Boom! Several shadows of dragons and tigers roared as they engulfed Lai Yunxiao. A blinding light shot up to the sky. Where Lai Yunxiao stood, it was like a huge flower of light, suddenly blossoming, blinding everyone's eyes. Crazy, too crazy. He didn't even block or dodge. My idol, he's my idol? Crazy, how can he be fine after taking such a blow? Even if he's seriously injured, he's still my idol? Lai Yunxiao is too handsome. Not to mention the crowd of students, everyone who was present at the scene was dumbfounded. After the flower of light bloomed, Lai Yunxiao's faint figure appeared again. His clothes were clean, without a speck of dust. "Haha, glass body, interesting?" Lai Yunxiao suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed, thinking to himself, "No wonder Beishan could use the indestructible golden body to resist my star-slashing sword. So he's this strong." Lin Yu took a deep breath as if he had received a great shock. He dragged his spear and retreated a few steps, at a loss of what to do. At this moment, on the training field, Luo Landuo, who had also signed up to join the army, had mixed feelings. She looked at the proud and aloof figure in front of her, who was laughing at the sky. Her mind was completely blank. She swallowed hard as the scenes began to replay in front of her eyes. My husband must be an indomitable hero. In the future, he must become a guardian divine guard. No matter how illustrious your background is, in the end, you are still a martial arts trash. Unless you can defeat me one day, then I will consider it a little. At this moment, Luo Landuo smiled bitterly as she looked at the monarch descending upon the world, as if he was a martial emperor soaring through the skies. She knew that from now on, the two of them, who were under the same sky, would never cross paths again. He would only get stronger and go further and further, while she could only watch helplessly as he left her in the dust. Perhaps they wouldn't even be able to eat dust. "Brother Lin, let's attack together." Suddenly, Bai Chengfeng also leapt forward and shouted, "Don't hold back anymore. Only by working together will we have a higher chance of winning." Lai Yunxiao's strength caused the two geniuses to completely put down their pride. There was only the conviction of victory in their eyes as they started to use their full strength. "Ninefold chain thunderbolt beads, scatter!" Bai Chengfeng let out a loud roar and opened his hands. Instantly, dozens of tiny pearls spread out in the air like a fishing net and shot towards Lai Yunxiao. The speed at which the pearls pierced through the air seemed to be able to pierce through even diamond rocks. Furthermore, Bai Chengfeng's pupils constricted. Just as the beads were about to reach Lai Yunxiao, he shouted, "Explode!" Dozens of ninefold chain thunderbolt beads exploded in an instant. The impact of the beads came wave after wave, and finally, the impact of the beads merged with each other and exploded into a pillar of fire. With this kind of power, even a martial master would die without a doubt, but Bai Chengfeng felt that it was not enough. The moment the ninefold chain thunderbolt beads exploded, his body flashed and he clasped his arms together. The two bracers combined into one and formed a circular stone plate. It formed a shadow in the sky and fell towards Lai Yunxiao. Cyan murderous millstone, suppress. Dragon tiger roar spear, attack with all your might. Lin Yu was very familiar with Bai Chengfeng. The moment Bai Chengfeng made his move, he also made his move. The combined attack of the two geniuses, coupled with dozens of ninefold chain thunderbolt beads. Even a one-star martial master would not be able to escape death. Just when everyone thought that the two geniuses would definitely win, suddenly, from where Lai Yunxiao was standing, rays of light began to shine. It was as if lotus flowers were blooming and disappearing one after another. Every lotus flower had a different colored light, as if it was a small world of its own. A soft voice came out from Lai Yunxiao's mouth. Green Lotus Sword Song. Like a dream, Lai Yunxiao's figure seemed to be situated in numerous green halos of light, and it seemed so illusory and unreal. All the attacks were blocked outside of the circle of light. No matter how hard they tried, they could not hurt the slender figure. Now, it's my turn to attack. Lai Yunxiao's pupils shrank. The Black Maiden's sword in his hand suddenly opened up, and an invisible force spread out. The heaven and earth Yuan Kai within a few meters of his body seemed to be sucked dry. It was extremely compressed on the body of the sword, faintly appearing as if it was real. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile. He took a step forward and softly said, Green Lotus Sword Song, 1 kill in 10 steps. The big sword swept out horizontally, and the extremely compressed Yuan Kai suddenly exploded. It carried with it an aura of annihilation as it swept up. Lin Yu and Bai Chengfeng were shocked. When Lai Yunxiao's figure appeared unscathed, they knew that they had completely lost. When the Green Lotus Sword Song slashed down with an invincible sword aura, the two of them were shocked and quickly retreated. Trying to escape, 100 times gravity, condense. Bang, bang. Just as the two of them wanted to soar into the sky, their feet were only a few inches away from the ground. Immediately, they felt 100 times gravity on them, and they fell down. The limestone stage cracked from the pressure. The two of them were shocked, and could only forcefully raise their profound weapons to block the thunderous sword aura. Boom! The sword aura exploded on the two of them. Crushed stones flew everywhere, and the entire stage was smashed into a huge pit. The two of them were lying in the deep pit covered in blood, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Ah, Tilda! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and retreated one after another. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock. Even Lai Chunyang and white-eyed ghostly lord had their mouths wide open in shock. Lai Yunxiao's battle prowess was actually this strong. No wonder he could chop off one of Lai Yi's arms. Such a powerful move had completely reached the level of a martial grandmaster. Although Zhang Lishan was shocked, he was more or less mentally prepared and could still accept it calmly. He looked at Lai Chunyang with extreme jealousy, and his heart was filled with anger. Lai Yunxiao sheathed his sword and stood straight. His gaze swept across the 2,000 cadets like a knife, and he said coldly, "Who else is not convinced? Come up together." All the cadets retreated again with a swoosh, and they pulled a large distance away from him. Lai Yunxiao then smiled with satisfaction and said seriously, "Although you are a temporary army, you must have the bearing of a soldier. Today, the Academy will distribute military resources to you. Tomorrow at noon, I hope that everyone will be punctual at the general selection stage." After this battle, Lai Yunxiao's image in the hearts of the cadets had reached a supreme level. Once his words were out, it was like a military order, and no one dared to disobey. The general selection stage was at the south of the capital, and it formed a corner with the royal palace. It was the place where His Majesty the King would appoint and review the troops before the army departed. But today, it was obvious that Qin Zheng was not in a good mood, and he did not appear at the general selection stage. Only Lai Chunyang sat alone on the stage with his transfer order in hand, resting with his eyes closed. Below him stood Qin Yu, Lai Yunxiao, and the rest. Below the general selection stage, there were more than 2,000 cadet soldiers neatly dressed in armor. On the other side, there was a stark contrast. There were only a dozen scattered generals and 2,000 to 3,000 old, weak, and disabled soldiers. These generals were all direct descendants of the Lai family. Under Qin Zheng's deliberate targeting, they had all been shelved. Although they were prominent and influential, they did not have any real power in their hands. They stayed at home every day, planting flowers and raising birds. "Old master, what do we do? The time has come. I don't think anyone else will come." Han Bai's father, Han Qianfang, said angrily. "Even without the Central Army, with our 5,000 elite troops, we can still lead the army to the east." Lai Chunyang raised his eyelids slightly, and his eyes were cloudy. He turned to the person on the left side of the general selection stage and said, "Commander Xiao, let's begin." Xiao Qingwang's eyes narrowed slightly, and he leaped onto the general selection stage. He raised his head and looked at the clear sky. Suddenly, a heroic spirit rose, and he gathered his vital energy on his dantian and suddenly whistled out from his mouth. A sound wave shot up to the 9 heavens, vibrating in the sky and spreading to every corner of the capital. The entire capital shook. Guardian Divine Guards gather below the general selection stage in half an incense stick's time. Those of the 5 squads, if they are not present, will be punished according to the crime of disobeying the order. For a moment, everyone in the capital, regardless of whether they were nobles or commoners, raised their heads in shock and looked at the sky. That godlike voice descended from the sky, causing everyone to stop what they were doing. They were extremely shocked. "It's Xiao Qingwang." Gao Feng suddenly raised his head, and his eyes were filled with fear. He muttered involuntarily, "He's recovered, he's completely recovered." This power is even stronger than before. Lai Yunxiao has really cured him. Qin Yang was also shocked, and his face was overcast. He said coldly, "So what if he has recovered? More than 90% of the Central Army is under my control. Does he want to gather 5 squads of the Guardian Divine Guards to fight against the enemy?" He looked at Gao Feng's terrified face and frowned. "Since you're so nervous, let's go and see what my brother is up to this time." In the depths of the palace, a pair of misty and turbid eyes looked at Qin Zheng, who was singing and dancing in front of him. Suddenly, the wine cup in his hand trembled, and the jade leaves scattered on the ground. His eyes seemed to become clearer, and he muttered to himself, "Xiao Qingwang, you're finally back. I can finally be at ease." In the Prime Minister's mansion, Lan Hong also raised his head to look at the sky with a solemn expression. Lan Guang said in shock, "Father, that voice just now, could it be?" Lan Hong pondered. "It's indeed Xiao Qingwang." The #1 martial artist of the Tianshui Kingdom has finally returned after 5 years of silence. General selection stage, general selection stage. It seems that the balance of fate has begun to tilt. Chapter 82. Lan Guang was aghast. "Father, you mean?" Lan Hong let out a long sigh and said, "Tomorrow is Consort Xiang's birthday. Get someone to prepare a generous gift and send it to the palace." Lan Guang seemed to understand that Consort Xiang was Prince Qin Yu's birth mother. A smile suddenly appeared on Lan Hong's face, and he muttered to himself, "Looks like the Lai family will be suppressing us for many years to come. However, hasn't he suffered enough losses?" On the Qinhui River, on a pleasure boat, a pair of middle-aged men were drinking to their heart's content. More than 10 gorgeously dressed beauties surrounded them, constantly acting coquettishly and making them laugh. The man on the left was dressed in a tight-fitting robe. He had delicate features and was hugging 2 beauties. His hands were constantly rubbing the soft parts of their bodies. He laughed and said, "Lai Yunxiao's actions are good. Those self-proclaimed romantic scholars have all scrammed back to their hometowns. Now, you and I can choose the beauties on this Qinhui pleasure boat." The man on the right had a shallow knife scar on his face. His eyes showed disdain, and he said with disdain, "Those weak and rotten scholars who only know how to pant on women actually dared to go to the Lai family to stir up trouble. They deserve to die. That old man Kong usually flaunts himself as a virtuous person. This time, he was used by the first prince and ended up like this." The man on the left laughed softly. "What do these court matters have to do with you and me?" Gao Feng was blinded by benefits and assisted the first prince. White-Eyed was trapped by love and was willing to stand behind Qin Yu. It's still Luo Yunsheng and you and I who are living freely. Now that there are fewer of those annoying scholars fighting with us for girls, it's even more like heaven on earth. "Ha ha!" The man on the right also laughed loudly. The two raised their cups and drank. His other hand was already touching somewhere. The beauties beside him were all panting and panting. Suddenly, the two of them trembled. Xiao Qingwang's voice exploded in the sky. The pleasure boat that the two of them were on shook incessantly. The girls were so frightened that they swayed left and right. The spring water in the river suddenly blew, as if a storm was coming. The two of them looked at each other in shock and looked at the sky at the same time. In the next moment, the dozen or so beauties on the pleasure boat discovered that they had already lost sight of the two of them. Only a large amount of gold coins were left in the boat, and the women immediately began to fight over them happily. Gao Feng, commander of the first squad of the Guardian Divine Guards, greets the King of Light. Qin Yang and Gao Feng were the first to arrive. Gao Feng looked at the solemn and indifferent Xiao Qingwang and immediately felt uneasy. He walked down the stage and cupped his hands in greeting. Qin Yang glanced at the crowd coldly, walked straight to the other side of the platform, and sat down peacefully. He looked at the 2,000 to 3,000 old and weak soldiers below the stage with a mocking look on his face. Wang Sugyuan, the commander of the second team of the Guardian Divine Guards, greets the King of Light. Commander of the 5th squad of the Guardian Divine Guards, Xiao Chen, greets Prince King. Two voices approached from afar. By the time everyone turned their heads around, two people had already landed below the general selection platform. They were the two middle-aged men who were having fun on the pleasure boat earlier. Luo Yunsheng and Wai Tai, who were on the left side of the platform, also stood up and walked down the stage hand in hand. Commander of the 3rd squad of the Guardian Divine Guards, Wai Tai, greets the King of Light. Commander of the 4th squad of the Guardian Divine Guards, Luo Yunsheng, greets the King of Light. With the 5 commanders in place, in an instant a large number of Guardian Divine Guards poured in from all directions and lined up behind the 5 of them. Very soon, there were more than 100 people below the stage. On the other side, the 2,000 student soldiers were extremely excited. Seeing the heroes in their hearts appear one by one, their blood immediately boiled. Only then did Xiao Qingwang raise his eyes. With his sleeves fluttering, he stood in the wind. Wherever his gaze landed, no one dared to raise their heads to look at him. He then coldly said, "The duty of a divine guard is to protect and defend the nation. We are to devote ourselves to the task until our last breath. Now that the army of the 100 warring kingdoms has invaded the country, His Majesty has issued an oral order for the Central Army to go to the rescue. But so far, only 2,000 to 3,000 people have arrived." So, Qin Yang, who was at the side, had a cold smile on his face. He thought to himself, so what? So the 100 over Guardian Divine Guards are also going to participate in the war. Tusk. Among the hundreds of thousands of soldiers, even if they were all martial masters, it would be of no use. Xiao Qingwang's eyes suddenly revealed a murderous aura as he shouted coldly, "Therefore, the 124 Central Army generals have disobeyed the Emperor's will and should be punished with death. Now send all of you to immediately capture these 124 people and execute them on the spot." Bang! Tilda! Everyone was shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air. Qin Yang even jumped up from his chair and roared angrily, "Xiao Qingwang, you want to kill the generals of the army? How dare you?" Xiao Qingwang's eyes focused and pierced into Qin Yang's body like a saber. Qin Yang only felt his body tremble as a cold chill rushed into his brain. He was extremely shocked. Xiao Qingwang stared at him and said coldly, "Qin Yang is one of the generals of the Central Army and a prince of the current dynasty. He took the lead in disobeying the Emperor's will and disregarded the safety of the country. This is the first crime." He paused and released a majestic murderous aura from his body. He shouted, "Men, take down Qin Yang first. Later, kill him together with the 124 people as a sacrifice." Bang! Tilda, this time, not only did everyone's mind go blank, even Lai Chunyang, who had always been calm, was shocked and opened his eyes in shock. Only Lai Yungxiao was surprised. A trace of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he nodded his head slightly. In his eyes, Xiao Qingwang's heart was unfettered, and he could kill as he pleased. Who cared if they were common people or important officials of the country? As long as they made him unhappy, he would kill them if he wanted to. This was the temperament that a martial artist should have. The path of martial arts was eternal, but it was ruthless. Every person who reached the peak and shook the world, which one of them did not have hands stained with blood? As for Lai Chunyang, he had fought for the country for many years. The concept of loyalty and patriotism was deeply ingrained in his mind. Therefore, he could not be as free and unrestrained as Xiao Qingwang. Therefore, his achievements were far from Xiao Qingwang's. You want to kill me. You dare to kill me. Qin Yang's eyes widened as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. His eyes were filled with a sense of disbelief. He was a prince of the country, a noble existence who would inherit the throne in the future. You, Xiao Qingwang, are just an official. How dare you say you want to kill me? Ha 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 ha. He suddenly felt that it was too much of a lie and he unconsciously laughed out loud. But after laughing for a while, he only felt his body turn cold. Xiao Qingwang's gaze was like he was looking at a dead man, causing him to feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Why can't I kill you? Why don't I dare to kill you? Xiao Qingwang said in a cold and contemptuous voice. If not for Lai Chunyang fighting for the country, if not for me, Xiao Qingwang, protecting the country and guarding the capital, the entire Tianshui country would have long ceased to exist. Your Qin family would have long become a speck of dust in history. And you, who do you think you are? I am an 8-star martial king in the entire Tianshui country who dares to go against me. Killing you is like killing a dog. Killing you is like killing a dog. Qin Yang's eardrums seemed to have been shattered. His brain was filled with buzzing noises and he almost collapsed to the ground. The 5 teams of divine guards were also dumbfounded. Each and every one of them stood rooted to the ground. Xiao Qingwang once again roared angrily. Only then did everyone come to their senses. In an instant, the birds and beasts dispersed to capture the 124 generals on the list. After being silent for 5 years, Xiao Qingwang, who had not cared about the affairs of the world and was always smiling and laughing, had finally returned. The wrath of a martial king had shocked the entire country. Gao Feng also hurriedly dispersed among the crowd. He was not going to capture any generals, but was rushing towards the palace. He had followed Xiao Qingwang for many years and was not unfamiliar with the murderous aura emanating from him. It was definitely not to scare people. If there were no unforeseen events, Prince Qin Yang would definitely be somewhere else. The only person who could save Qin Yang now was the one in the palace, the king of the Tianshui country, Qin Zheng. On the stage, everyone was still unable to recover from the shock, including Qin Yu. He saw his elder brother, whose status was higher than his, being tied up like a dumpling and hung up with a rope like a criminal. He did not feel the slightest bit of joy in his heart. Instead, he felt like he was in a trance. For the first time, he had great doubts about the throne. If one ascends to the throne, would he really be above everyone else and have the entire world submit to him? Then what was his elder brother's current state? Xiao Qingwang was an 8-star martial king. Even if he really killed the princes, could the country's laws and millions of soldiers arrest him? The answer was obviously no. Killing Qin Yang was like killing a dog, but what about killing him? There was obviously no difference. Qin Yu's heart was filled with bitterness. For the first time, he felt that perhaps his target was wrong. The 2,000 students below the stage, as well as the 2,000 to 3,000 old and weak soldiers, all felt their blood boiling under Xiao Qingwang's imposing manner. The neat and tidy military postures immediately appeared in front of them. No one dared to breathe loudly, and no one dared to move lightly. There were more than 5,000 people present, but it was as if there was only silence. All the divine guards of the kingdom were mobilized at the same time. The efficiency was extremely shocking. Very quickly, all 124 generals were tied up and brought over. One by one, they were pressed onto the ground. Some of them were unconvinced at first, but when they saw Qin Yang being tied up like a dumpling and hung under the flag of the marshal, They immediately collapsed in horror. All 124 of them were kneeling neatly before the stage. Behind each of them was a divine guard. They did not dare to show the slightest bit of resistance. Xiao Qingwang's gaze swept across these people, as if he was looking at dead pigs. He sneered mockingly and said, "You must think that the law does not punish the masses. You must think that Lai Chunyang can't do anything to you. Now, I will use the blood of your heads as a sacrifice to the flag. In your next life, remember that the Tianshui kingdom will still be glorious without you. Don't think too highly of yourselves. You are nothing." He waved his hand, and a bone-chilling, murderous aura blew across their faces. "Kill them all." Bang! These 124 people were scared out of their wits. Originally, they thought that the reason they were tied up was just to put on airs and kill them a little. In the end, they still had to rely on them to lead the troops to war. They never thought that they would be killed so decisively. This had already exceeded everyone's expectations. "Wait!" Suddenly, a vigorous voice came from afar. Gao Feng seemed to have soared into the sky and instantly arrived below the stage. He knelt down on both knees and raised an imperial edict with both hands. He was panting heavily, and his body was already drenched in sweat. It was obvious that he had not rested at all. Chapter 83. His Majesty's Imperial Edict, Prince Qingwang, please accept the edict. Gao Feng panted loudly. Xiao Qingwang looked at him coldly and stood still. He said expressionlessly, "Read it." Gao Feng quickly unfolded the edict and said loudly, "His Majesty's Edict, Qin Yang and the other Central Army generals were arrogant and disobeyed orders. They will be punished with death. Now that the country is in danger, I will give them a chance to redeem themselves with meritorious service. As for Qin Yang as a prince, he did not prioritize the affairs of the country. He will be whipped 100 times as a warning to others. Phew! At this moment, all the generals, including Qin Yang, heaved a sigh of relief. He had almost lost his life. Qin Yang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He had never felt so close to death before. Although being whipped 100 times was still extremely painful, at least his life was saved. Moreover, his direct subordinates were also saved. Xiao Qingwang gently raised his eyelids. His pupils suddenly shrank, and with an indifferent expression he said to the crowd below the stage, "Apart from Qin Yang, I will whip him 500 times as a warning to others. Kill everyone else. PFFT. Everyone was shocked. One of the generals glared angrily and shouted, "Xiao Qingwang, you old man, how dare you defy the Imperial Edict? You are the one who deserves to die." Bang! As soon as he finished, the guardian divine guard behind him slapped his head, causing his brain to splatter. Bang! All sorts of screams could be heard, but soon silence was restored. 124 Central Army generals were all killed. None of Qin Yang's subordinates in the Central Army were spared. PFFT. Qin Yang felt dizzy and spat out a mouthful of blood. He said viciously, "Xiao Qingwang, you defy the Imperial Edict. Your 9 generations will be executed." Xiao Qingwang smiled coldly. "His Majesty gave them a chance, but I did not. You all disobeyed the Imperial Edict. Someone will kill you. I disobeyed. Who dares to kill me? I think you don't want me to give you a chance either." His cold gaze swept past Qin Yang, causing him to turn pale. He quickly shut his mouth and did not dare to speak again. He believed that if he made another sound, he would be dead on the spot. Xiao Qingwang waved his hand and said, "Drag Qin Yang away and give him 500 lashes." He looked at the corpses on the ground and said coldly, without any expression, "Immediately inform all the lower-ranked generals to come here in half an incense stick's time. Those who don't come, don't say anything, just kill them." Immediately, more than 100 divine guards spread out again. Soon, in less than 10 minutes, all the generals in the capital, big and small, had arrived. Those who should be here and those who shouldn't have been here had all arrived. Furthermore, all of them were equipped with swords and armor, looking valiant and formidable. None of them dared to reveal a trace of impatience or fatigue. Very good. Xiao Qingwang looked at the audience with satisfaction. He then turned around and walked down the stage, handing over the control of the stage to Lai Chunyang. After he walked down, he directly sat on the left side of the table and said to Lai Yunxiao, "The first task has been completed." Lai Yunxiao smiled lightly and said, "Prince of King is indeed ruthless. Now no one will dare to be dishonest." Lai Chunyang glanced down from the general selection platform, then said sternly, "The commander of this expedition is Chen Desheng. Chen Desheng, step forward and receive the commander's seal." Everyone was at a loss. Chen Desheng? Who? There was no such person among the high-ranked generals. Everyone knew that Lai Chunyang would only send his own direct descendants. Han Qianfang and the Chen family's patriarch, Chen Lin, were both possible candidates, but no one expected such an unfamiliar name to be chosen. But soon, some of the older generals seemed to have thought of something. Their expressions changed greatly, and they all looked towards the stage in shock. Chen Lin, who was below the stage, was even more shocked. His whole body trembled as he looked at an old man who slowly stood up from the left side of the stage. Chen Lin only felt a little dazed. When he saw the old man's face clearly, he finally couldn't bear it anymore. He ran forward and knelt down, crying loudly, "Father, father, it's really you." "You're not dead." Chen Desheng was also in tears. He held back his joy and patted Chen Lin's head. Suddenly his face darkened and he kicked Chen Lin away. He said angrily, "How can you cry in front of the stage? What a scandal! Get out of here." He strode to the front of the platform and received the commander's seal with both hands. In a loud voice he said, "Chen Desheng accepts the order." Chen Desheng raised the commander's seal for everyone to look up at. He then walked onto the stage and shouted, "Han Qianfang is present." "Your subject is present?" Han Qianfang hurried forward to accept the order. Chen Desheng's death had greatly shocked him. Although he wasn't crying with joy like Chen Lin, he was still very happy. Chen Desheng took out a commander's seal and threw it down. "I order you to be the left vanguard with 100,000 troops." Han Qianfang accepted the order. "Yes." "Chen Lin is present?" "Yes, yes, I'm present." Sob, sob, sob. Chen Lin's face was still full of tears as he ran forward excitedly. Chen Desheng huffed angrily and threw a commander's seal at his face. "Right vanguard with 100,000 troops?" "Yes, yes." Sob, 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 tilde. Chen Lin picked up the commander's seal and returned to the formation. "Is Lai Yunxiao present?" Lai Yunxiao stepped forward from the left side of the formation, walked forward and cupped his hands. "This young master is present?" Chen Desheng frowned. If anyone else dared to address themselves as this young master in front of him, they would definitely be finished. However, this was Lai Yunxiao, so he couldn't be bothered to argue with him. He threw down the commander's seal and said, "I order you to be the chief of logistics. You will lead 2,000 students and ensure the logistics." Lai Yunxiao smiled bitterly. He had actually been sent to handle logistics. He took the commander's seal and retreated. Some of the 2,000 students were happy, while others were sad. The happy thing was that they didn't have to go to the front lines. It was safer. The sad thing was that they wouldn't be able to gain merit if they went to the front lines, and they wouldn't be able to become Qin Yu's trusted aides. For a moment, everyone had their own thoughts. Chen Desheng continued to shout, "The rest of you, listen to this commander's orders. Now the army will move out." "Army, move out!" All the generals shouted in unison. Their voices instantly shook the heavens. The troops that were ready to set off began to circle around the capital before exiting the city. This was the custom before every expedition. Only then did Qin Yu walk up to Chen Desheng and say respectfully, "Tianshui's national security is in General Chen's hands." Chen Desheng nodded. "Prince Yu, don't worry. If I don't defeat the enemy, I swear I won't return." Lai Chunyang patted him on the shoulder and said affectionately, "Desheng, be careful and take care." Chen Desheng grinned. "Don't worry, big brother. I didn't die even 5 years ago, let alone now." After saying their goodbyes, the group also set off. Just as they were about to leave the capital, 2 figures suddenly ran over and ran to Lai Yunxiao's side. They shouted, young Master Yun, take us with you." The 2 of them jumped onto his chariot. It was Han Bai and Chen Zhen. Both of them looked dejected. The army's main chariot was more than 30 meters long and more than 10 meters wide. It was pulled by 8 horses and could accommodate dozens of people. As it turned out, the 2 of them were slightly less talented. After taking the vitality-charging pill that Lai Yunxiao gave them, they had already reached the peak of 7 chakras and were just a step away from breaking through. They just happened to meet the registration period, and the minimum requirement was to be a martial warrior. This made the 2 of them depressed for quite a while. When they found out that the main commander of the student army was actually Lai Yunxiao, they were immediately overjoyed and waited by the city gates. The moment they saw Lai Yunxiao, they immediately rushed over shamelessly. Lai Yunxiao said in surprise, "The 2 of you are quite talented. Even after taking my vitality-charging pill, you still haven't broken through to martial warrior." Hanbai released his primordial kai slightly, and the light of a martial warrior immediately bloomed. He smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't sleep last night and broke through just like that." "I'm a day late," Chen Zhen said bitterly. "Your foundation is better than mine. I've been stuck at the peak of 3 chakras for 3 days and still haven't broken through." Meng Bai, who was at the side, said in surprise, "I have the power of 5 chakras and broke through to martial warrior on the night I took the vitality-charging pill. Aren't the 2 of you too talented?" Chen Zhen said angrily, "That can only mean that young Master Yun is biased. The quality of the pills he gave us are not as good as yours." "HMPH, you're useless, yet you're blaming the pills." A cold snort came from the tent of the chariot. Who dares to scold me?" Chen Zhen was furious. He kicked open the tent's curtain and rushed in with a roar, "Silence." They had thought that there would be a big commotion, but who knew that it was as if they had fallen into the sea. There was no sound at all. Hanbai frowned in surprise and said, "What's going on? Could his father be inside?" Lai Yunxiao smiled. Not only his father, but his father's father was also inside. "Ah!" A scream came from inside the tent. It was from Chen Zhen. Then Chen Desheng's voice came. "Yunxiao, Hanbai, you guys come in as well." The 2 of them walked into the tent. Originally, Chen Desheng, Chen Lin, and Han Qianfang were discussing tactics. Now Chen Zhen was kneeling on the ground, drenched in sweat. Lai Yunxiao's gaze froze. He stared at Chen Zhen, and his expression immediately darkened. He said in a serious voice, "You guys forced him to break through." Hanbai was also shocked. He hurriedly looked at Chen Zhen, who was lying on the ground and panting. As expected, he was already a first-element martial warrior. His body was constantly circulating with the light of primordial kai. A trace of anger flashed in Lai Yunxiao's eyes. He said coldly, "Don't you know that this is harming him? Forcefully breaking through at such an important stage will definitely affect his future achievements." Chen Desheng stopped working on the sand table in his hands and looked up at Lai Yunxiao, who was quietly looking at him. He sighed and said, "Yunxiao, you must also know that my grandson's aptitude is really mediocre. What level do you think he will be able to reach in the future? There are limits to life, but there are no limits to the path of martial arts. Rather than letting him linger around as a low-level martial warrior, why not let me give him a hand and mold him as soon as possible?" Lai Yunxiao's gaze gradually turned sharp. He said coldly, "Then, what level do you think he can be molded to?" Chen Desheng said, "I have discussed this with Chen Lin. With the help of experts and all sorts of medicinal pills, I will be satisfied if he can become a martial grand master in the future." Lai Yunxiao nodded. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he said coldly, "Very well. Put away your laughable thoughts." He extended a finger and said coldly, 1 year. Give me 1 year. I will definitely let him step into the 4 symbols realm and become a martial lord." Everyone was overwhelmed with shock. Chen Desheng's eyes shot out a bright light, and he said in a deep voice, "Yunxiao, I know you are very capable. However, on the path of martial arts, every step is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Back then, my aptitude was already at the peak within my generation. I only stepped into the 4 symbols realm after experiencing life and death, and by coincidence. I know you have good intentions for Chen Zhen, but you cannot let your emotions affect your decisions." Chapter 84. Lai Yunxiao picked up Chen Zhen on the ground and looked coldly at the 3. "Are you done? If you are, then continue with your business." But if I find out that you forcefully broke through the barrier and increased your realm again, don't mention that you're close to my grandfather. I'll turn against you all the same. I'm cautiously warning you there won't be a next time." His words caused Chen Desheng and the others to be dumbstruck, and Han Bai was extremely shocked as well. Lai Yunxiao carried Chen Zhen out of the tent with a cold face. Han Bai stole a glance at the three dumbfounded people. He didn't dare to stay any longer and hurriedly followed. Han Qianfang was the first to speak. "This Lai Yunxiao is indeed different from before. There's been a lot of talk about him recently. Look at his aura, he dares to be so impudent in front of the three of us." Chen Lin also frowned. "This kid is quite talented. He's the same year as Chen Zhen, and he's already an 8-star warrior. But I don't quite believe he can suppress the two geniuses of Jialan Academy, Lin Yu and Bai Chengfeng. I've observed both of them closely. Both of them are peerless existences that are one in a million." Han Qianfang said. "The fact that Duke Jing is willing to let him come out alone shows that he's indeed outstanding. But it's too exaggerated. Letting Chen Zhen become a martial lord in a year, does he think martial lords are common goods?" Chen Desheng squeezed the little person into a ball and said seriously, "Let this kid try. Don't interfere with Chen Zhen's cultivation for now." Chen Lin was shocked and said anxiously, "Father, do you believe his nonsense? Haha, becoming a martial lord in a year, does he think he—" "Enough," Chen Desheng interrupted. "This kid is indeed strange." Although I think it's absurd, the moment he said it, I couldn't help but believe it. Chen Lin's eyes widened and he shook his head. "Father, this is complete nonsense." Chen Desheng's eyes narrowed. "Give him a year. With your cultivation, you can't understand that feeling. It's an instinctive belief. Moreover, what you all don't know is that this kid is a genuine second-level arcane master." Chen Lin and Han Qianfang's eyes widened in horror. After Lai Yunxiao left the tent, he threw Chen Zhen to Jia Rong and said, "Give him a rain pill to stabilize his realm." He turned to look at an officer beside him and asked, "Where is the next city? How long will it take?" The officer hurriedly saluted and reported, "Reporting to General, the next city is Yangpu City. According to our current speed, we still have 10 days left." 10 days, so long. Lai Yunxiao frowned and looked into the distance. In his previous life, he didn't have the concept of traveling at all. He just tore through space and traveled tens of thousands of miles, shrinking the distance to an inch. What? The novelty is gone. At some point, Chen Desheng had also walked out of the tent and stood behind him. He chuckled and said, "We are already on a rapid march. If we were to march normally, it would take at least a month. Fighting a war is a life of desperation, not for fun." Lai Yunxiao rolled his eyes at him. "Fun. I just want to get there early so I can get some herbs for Chen Zhen to consume and temporarily stabilize his realm at 1-star warrior. This will remove the negative influence you all have on him." "Eh?" Chen Desheng felt his throat choking. He realized that this kid's invisible aura was vaguely above his own. This made him extremely unhappy. He thought to himself, "No matter what, I am still the general. I have to suppress this kid's prestige." He pointed at the rapidly marching army of hundreds of thousands and said, "Kid, what do you think of this army?" Lai Yunxiao indifferently said, "Just so-so." "Just so-so?" Chen Desheng's eyes bulged and sneered. "You are just a newborn calf that has never seen the world. Although this 400,000-strong army is not a tiger and wolf army, it is disciplined and well-trained. This can be seen from the details of the march." He preached and proudly said, "Also, look at the murderous aura emanating from this army. This can only be produced after experiencing life and death battles. This kind of murderous aura is enough to—" "All right, I got it." Lai Yunxiao interrupted. "It is already noon. Grandpa, you should take your medicine. Don't forget to let teacher Yun Shang help you suppress the poison." Chen Desheng froze on the spot, feeling extremely awkward. The people on both sides covered their mouths and laughed, but they did not dare to laugh out loud. Chen Desheng angrily said, "Kid, I know you are an alchemist. Amazing. But marching and fighting," Lai Yunxiao frowned and interrupted again, "isn't it just murderous aura?" He pointed at the student army that was escorting the various training materials and said, 10 days later, before we enter Yangpu City, the murderous aura of these 2,000 students will surpass your 400,000-strong army. Do you believe me? Haha, his arrogance is boundless. Do you think murderous aura is air? You can just breathe it in. Chen Desheng laughed maniacally. Lai Yongxiao pointed at his head and coldly said, I will use my head to make a military pledge. If I enter 10 days later, I will let you kick my head like a ball. If I win, the position of general will belong to me. As for you, you just have to do odd jobs for me. Chen Desheng's expression changed greatly. This time, even the people around him were stunned. Chen Desheng said in a deep voice, How can a military pledge be taken lightly? As a student army general, you should know that there is no joking in the army. Lai Yongxiao chuckled and raised his head. Of course. However, in these 10 days, I will leave the matter of escorting the supplies to you. I will take these people and leave first. See you in 10 days at Yangpu City. He lightly rose into the air and landed on another chariot. Jai Meng, Jia Rong, Meng Wu, Chen Zhen, and Han Bai also followed. Lai Yongxiao stood at the top of the chariot and shouted, All student army, listen up. Immediately drop all the supplies and follow my chariot at full speed. The officer driving the chariot hurriedly whipped his horse. Lai Yongxiao's chariot instantly overtook the chariot. The chariot took the lead in front of the army. Behind it, more than 2,000 student soldiers also increased their speed and charged forward. These 2,000 people were martial warriors with outstanding strength. Regardless of whether it was their physical strength or cultivation, they were several times stronger than an ordinary army. Thus, it was relatively easy for them to run. Soon, Lai Yongxiao led the group of people and left, leaving a trail of dust behind them. Chen Desheng looked at the dust in front of him, his expression uncertain. Chen Lin said in shock, Father, you are really letting him go just like that? This is clearly nonsense. Do you believe what he said, that in 10 days, while marching, he will be able to condense murderous aura that is stronger than the central army? Chen Desheng snorted. Of course not. Chen Lin was stunned. Then what about you? He will use his head to guarantee that when the time comes. Chen Desheng slapped the back of Chen Lin's head and scolded. Who heard the military order? Are you really going to let the military law kill that brat? When the time comes, just hang him up and give him a good beating. He turned around and went back to his tent, muttering to himself. Aya, my body is starting to hurt again. I really need to take some medicine. When he turned around, he saw Xiao Qingwang and Luo Yunshang. He did not know when they had appeared on the chariot. Luo Yunshang's forehead was slightly covered in sweat. It was obvious that she had just consumed a large amount of vital energy. Chen Desheng asked, Teacher Luo, can you still hold on? Luo Yunshang chuckled. No problem. I don't know where this Lai Yongxiao got his healing technique from. While helping you guys to suppress the cold Kai, I can also feel my yang vital energy continuously strengthening. It seems to be even more effective than cultivating in seclusion. Chen Desheng said angrily, Don't mention that brat. When the time comes, see if I don't hang him up and beat him until half of his body is crippled to vent my anger. Xiao Qingwang, who had been silent all this while, smiled meaningfully and said, Oh, I don't think you will have a chance. He looked as if he was waiting for Chen Desheng to do odd jobs for him. Chen Desheng was stunned for a moment, then his face filled with disbelief. Lai Yongxiao led the 2,000 student army and left, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The people around him were all silent. Chen Zhen said bitterly, Young Master Yun, you've really gone too far this time. You made a military pledge. Even if you don't get beheaded, you will definitely be beaten half to death by my grandfather. Lai Yongxiao smiled and said, It's just condensing some killing intent. Is it that difficult? Han Bai said seriously. It's just condensing some killing intent. To think that you can say that. This is the killing intent that can only be accumulated in the body after fighting with real swords and spears on the battlefield. Once on the battlefield, this kind of killing intent will be released and greatly increase the combat power of the soldiers. Not to mention 10 days, if you don't personally go on the battlefield, you won't be able to train it even if you train it for 10 years. Lai Yunxiao had a smile in his eyes and said with a relaxed smile, "Then let them experience life and death battles. Isn't that enough?" He ignored everyone's astonished expression and shouted, "Full speed march! I want you to reach Yangpu City within 4 days." The corners of his mouth curled into a smile, and he said in a voice that only the people beside him could hear, "In the remaining 6 days, I will send you all to hell." He flicked his long sleeves and went into the big tent. The rest of the people looked at each other and did not dare to go in and disturb him. One by one, they sat down outside the tent and began to cultivate. The officer driving the chariot drove the chariot with all his might. The 2,000 students were all martial warriors, so they ran even more fiercely than a horse. However, each of them had some reservations and did not dare to surpass Lai Yunxiao's chariot. All of them followed closely behind. On the 3rd day, the spirits of these students were completely down. Each of them was like a frosted eggplant. The 2,000 people pulled a few miles, shuttling through the pipes like a chain. Many of them looked at the chariot in front of them with resentment. They thought to themselves, "I've been running hard for 3 days, but all of you good-for-nothings are sitting comfortably in the chariot." But following closely behind the chariot were 2 figures that everyone once looked up to without the slightest trace of fatigue. Lin Yu and Bai Chengfeng gritted their teeth and followed behind the chariot without the slightest complaint. There was only an unyielding gaze and willpower in their eyes. Chapter 85. The 8 horses pulling the commander's chariot were all hybrids purchased from the Fire Crow Empire at a high price. They were hybrids between horses and demonic beasts. Their eyes were blood red and their legs were powerful. However, they could not endure this kind of non-stop running. Finally, on the 3rd day, when they arrived outside Yangpu City, they all neighed and died on the ground. After 10 minutes, everyone finally arrived. They were all panting, their faces pale. Lai Yunxiao lazily walked down from the chariot. He stretched and yawned a few times, then looked up at the sky. Why is it so late? The moon is really round today. Come on down, let's admire the moon." Chen Zhen, Han Bai, and the rest jumped down from the chariot one after another. They each held a cup of hot water in their hands and took a few sips from time to time. More than 2,000 students were seething with anger and resentment. However, when they thought of Lai Yunxiao's shocking battle strength, they were all furious, but did not dare to speak. Lai Yunxiao had a playful smile on his face. "All right, tea time is over, time to work." Chen Zhen and the rest put down their teacups and began drawing on the ground with their weapons. The 2,000 students watched curiously, but did not know what they were doing. Very soon, a huge circle was drawn on the ground. Some of the students immediately recognized it. It was a formation that contained more than 2,000 people. "What is this for? What array is this?" "Heavens, to activate such a large array, how many primal stones would it take? How strong must the arcane master be to activate it?" a student with knowledge of arrays exclaimed. "Didn't you see the rank 2 arcane master Jia Rongjia following us? Tusk, I know it must be a huge recovery array to help our sect recover." "Oh, there's such a good thing." "Of course, if you don't believe me, just wait and see." Lai Yunxiao smirked as he listened to the discussions of the crowd. Soon, the array was set up. On both sides of the array, there were countless primal stones of different sizes and grades. Everyone was speechless. This was too wasteful. The young master of a large aristocratic family was indeed rich. Little did they know that Lai Yunxiao was also feeling extremely distressed at this moment. In order to set up this formation, he had almost emptied the primordial stones in the World Divine Monument. Enduring the pain in his heart, he walked to the center of the formation, took out the lunar frost sword and the spring water sword, and directly inserted them into the formation. Suddenly, a beam of light soared into the sky, and the 2 sword shadows appeared in the void. The light alternated, and the cold air was oppressive. The students of the club had never seen such a magnificent scene before. Their attention was immediately drawn to the sky. Lai Yunxiao's lips curled into a cruel smile as he said evilly, "This is an array that has used up all of my family's assets, and the 2 array eyes are grade 3 profound weapons. This array can help all of you become true warriors in a short period of time. Everyone, let's begin a joyous journey of enjoyment." Under the reflection of the sword light, his gaze became unusually demonic. A few spiritual techniques were cast from his hands, and ancient and strange characters appeared in the void, falling into the array. Suddenly, everyone was shocked to discover that the originally bright and beautiful moon in the sky had suddenly become demonic, and gradually, traces of blood red appeared. This is... Everyone was shocked. That bright moon had actually turned into a demonic eyeball. Lai Yunxiao stood coldly outside the array. Both of his eyes had already turned blood red, and they began to gradually curve, turning into two crescent moons. His pupils suddenly dilated, and a demonic power suddenly rippled out. All the students in the formation were shocked. A strange feeling came from the blood-red eyeball moon, instantly taking control of everyone's mind. Everyone immediately became at a loss, and the expressions on their faces began to turn sluggish. The people standing outside the array looked in and saw that the students were all dumbfounded, standing there quietly, not moving at all. Young Master Yun, what's wrong with them?" Chen Zhen asked in shock. Lai Yunxiao had only told them the steps to set up the array, but he hadn't explained its use. Lai Yunxiao turned his head and glanced at him. His demonic eyes caused Chen Zhen to take a few steps back in horror and shock. "You guys can go in and play as well." As soon as Lai Yunxiao finished speaking, he took a few steps forward and attacked at the same time, instantly slapping Chen Zhen, Han Bai, Meng Wu, and Meng Bai inside. Only Jia Rong and Jaimeng were left. Jia Rong's face was full of fear, and he quickly retreated. Jaimeng's brows furrowed, and he wanted to walk into the array himself. Lai Yunxiao suddenly said, "Don't go in. You're a martial lord, and Jia Rong is a rank 2 alchemist. My eye technique is still too weak, and I can't control your minds." Jia Rong let out a sigh of relief, and his courage grew. He walked forward and carefully asked, "Young Master Yun, this array?" Lai Yunxiao closed his demonic eyes and said quietly, "This is an illusion array called the Thousand Illusion Array. They will experience some unforgettable, and extremely interesting things inside." Jia Rong's body trembled. When Lai Yunxiao said extremely interesting things, his playful and sinister smile made Jia Rong's heart shiver, and he began to silently pray for these people. Lai Yunxiao said quietly, "Jaimeng, protect everyone. I don't know how long I can last, but I'll try my best." He drew a small circle under his feet and placed a few source stones in it. He sat inside, formed a seal with his hands, and began to meditate. Jaimeng's eyes focused, and he leaped up, hiding in a nearby tree. He spread out his divine sense as far as possible. He began to protect everyone. Jia Rong was the only one who had nothing to do, so he sat down and began to cultivate. Zhang Tao was the most outstanding student in the Sky Eagle Martial Academy. At the age of 13, he had already opened 5 chakras, and there was a high chance that he could condense his Danshan before the age of 15. Then, he would step into the first nascent realm and become a true martial warrior. His biggest wish was to quickly save up enough money to enter the capital's Jia-Lan Martial Academy. After graduating, he would become a guardian divine guard, bring honor to his ancestors, let his parents live a good life, and let his sister find a good family and marry a good one. Every day, Zhang Tao would come to the back mountain to cultivate alone, and he could punch a hole in a tree that required 2 people to hug it. What this is? He had just blasted a hole the size of a face plate into a big tree, but a white head was revealed from inside. It was actually a wolf. Why is a wolf in a tree? Zhang Tao retreated in horror. The wolf with white fur and green eyes floated out of the tree, and Zhang Tao cried out in horror, "Demon wolf! Demon beast! Why is there a demon beast in the back mountain?" He didn't have time to think, and he ran down the mountain with all his might. Demon beasts were existences that even real martial artists didn't dare to fight against. Awoo-oh! The demonic wolf let out a long howl and pounced over. It opened its scarlet, blood-red mouth and bit down. Zhang Tao didn't have time to escape, and he quickly turned around and took a horse stance. In his heart, he kept telling himself, "Don't panic, don't panic." I'm not afraid. King Kong fist. He exerted strength in his legs, and when there was no way to escape, he made up his mind to fight. The punch was like a King Kong, with the force of 1,000 pounds, and it was accompanied by a whistling sound. If it was a real, ordinary wolf, it would definitely die under this punch. But what he met was a demon wolf, and the punch landed directly on the wolf's head. Just when Zhang Tao was overjoyed, he was shocked to find that his fist had penetrated the body of the demon wolf, as if he had punched an empty space. What's going on? His mind instantly went blank. Suddenly, the demon wolf on his arm opened its mouth and bit down fiercely. Ah! A sharp pain came from his arm, and Zhang Tao's eyes widened in anger. His right arm had been bitten off by the demon wolf. "Bastard, I'll kill you!" His eyes were bloodshot, and he clawed at the demon wolf's head with the 5 fingers of his left hand. It was the eagle claw. What? The eagle claw penetrated the body of the demon wolf again, and there was no feeling of touch at all. Zhang Tao was shocked, and he roared, "How could this be? How could this be?" Ah! Another heart-wrenching scream was heard, and the whole mountain was startled by countless birds. Zhang Tao fainted on the ground, and it was already late when he woke up. How could this be? He stared at the bloodstains on the ground and his broken arms. Both of them had been eaten by the demon wolf. Ah! Why didn't you just kill me? Zhang Tao ran crazily in the back mountain, and 2 streams of tears flowed down from his eyes. How could I practice martial arts without my arms? How could I get into the Jia Lan Academy? How could I become a guardian divine guard? How could I bring a new life to my parents and sister? God, why did you do this to me? Zhang Tao had no idea how he made it back home, as the faces of those who were waiting for him flashed across his mind. Looking at the dim light in the dilapidated house, his father must be smoking a hookah in front of the door. His mother must still be mending someone's clothes in front of the bed, and his little sister must be sitting in the kitchen making dinner. Looking at his empty arms, he didn't feel any pain, but he felt like his heart was filled with lead, so heavy that he couldn't breathe and he couldn't even lift his feet. He didn't know how to face the people closest to him. Ah, no, sob, sob, sob. Suddenly, a painful cry for help came from inside the house. That was his sister's voice. Zhang Tao abruptly raised his head and hurriedly ran in. The shabby door had already fallen to one side. He saw his father was hitting someone's forehead with a hoe. But the person kicked him in the chest, and he was sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in the air. His father fell to the ground, and he died with blood flowing out of his orifices. "Dad!" Zhang Tao felt like he was being torn apart. He roared and rushed forward. He wanted to carry his father, but how could he do it without his hands? Chapter 86. Don't, please don't. There was another painful cry for mercy from inside the house, but this time it was his mother. "Mother, Tilda." Zhang Tao rushed in with grief and indignation, just in time to see the mayor's son step on his mother's head fiercely. His mother's eyes were wide open, and her shriveled body twitched a few times before she finally died. Her sad eyes were wide open, and she died with everlasting regret. Mother. Tilda Zhang Tao spat out a mouthful of blood, only feeling that the world was spinning. Inside the house, the mayor's son was naked, lying on his sister's white body with a group of lowly ruffians, twitching excitedly. A large amount of blood flowed from his sister's legs. Her tender face, which was only 10 years old, was in so much pain that she couldn't make a sound. Only despair and pain were left in her eyes. "Bastards, I'll kill you." Zhang Tao was completely crazy. Like a mad bull, he used his head to desperately hit his sister. "Kill." "Haha, I was a little afraid of you. Now you have lost your arm, how can you kill me? Beat him to death, beat this trash to death." The mayor's son shouted unscrupulously, but his body did not stop for a moment, still twitching on his sister's body. It seemed that he was more excited and quickened his movements. Zhang Tao only felt a sharp pain on his head, and his whole body fell to the ground. Fists and feet fell like a storm, and his limbs and bones were all broken. A fuzzy consciousness began to attack his mind, his pupils began to dilate, and his whole body began to gradually lose consciousness. His powerless eyes stared blankly at the blood constantly flowing from his sister's body. He was powerless. His body was in pain, but he couldn't feel it at all. His heart felt like it was being cut by a sharp knife. Tilda the mayor's son twitched happily, and his whole body suddenly entered the climax. After a violent tremble, he finally fell down softly, lying on his sister's petite body. At the same time, his younger sister's pure white body started to slowly harden, turn cold, and turn purplish-green. After suffering all kinds of abuse, she finally died. Jiang Tao's heart instantly broke, and suddenly his pupils began to gradually focus. He lay on the ground, and he didn't know where the power came from. He felt that he suddenly had strength. As he clenched his hands, a feeling of strength that he had never felt before came to his heart. 2 fists. He was stunned for a moment. He actually had a fist. Not only did he have 2 hands, but he also had a sword in his right hand, a sharp sword that shone brightly and emitted a chilling aura. Kill, kill, kill. His mind went blank. Then a huge murderous thought appeared in his eyes. He raised his sword, and with a flash of cold light, all the hooligans who were punching and kicking him were cut in half, dying without a burial. Good sword. His face contorted as he walked towards the mayor's son. Kill, kill, I want to kill everyone. Everyone must die. Holding his sword, Jiang Tao walked out of the house and headed for the mayor's house. Everywhere they passed, corpses were left strewn all over the place. Run! Jiang Tao is killing people. Don't, I'm the granny next door, don't kill me. Quick, go find the mayor. Quick, go find someone to subdue this murderer. Oh no, the mayor and his family were all killed. What should we do? Who can save us? Run, hurry up and run. The whole town was in chaos. Jiang Tao held his sword. He had already lost count of how many people he had killed. From day to night, there was no one left alive. The whole town became empty. The moon at night was unusually round and big. His mind was blank, and there was no emotion in his eyes. He raised his head to look at the full moon in the sky. How was this a full moon? It was clearly a huge red human pupil. Jiang Tao stared at the huge eye in the sky in a daze. The whole town was dead. There was dead silence, and there was no sense of life. He suddenly felt like he was in a trance. It was as if the scenery around him had begun to distort, and an extremely surreal feeling appeared in front of him. All the corpses were gone, and even the town was gone. There was only a wilderness, a pitch-black night, thousands of students from Jia Lan Academy, and the bright moon in the sky. Jiang Tao looked at the scenery around him in a daze, his face full of confusion. Just like him, there were more than 2,000 students from the academy. All of them were in a daze, and their eyes were filled with confusion. Wah, Tilda, suddenly a female student burst into tears. It was as if a stone had been thrown into an ancient well, rippling the surface of the lake. The entire wilderness erupted. Everyone covered their faces and hugged their heads, crying loudly. The sound of sorrow was earth-shattering. There were even more students kneeling on the ground, punching the ground with their fists. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they were all filled with grief and indignation. Jia Rong was dumbfounded. In his opinion, these people had only been standing there for a day and night. How could they suddenly have such a huge emotional upheaval? He suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He thought of the interesting things Lai Yunxiao had mentioned. He shivered and sneaked a peek. At this moment, Lai Yunxiao's eyes had returned to normal. His entire body was abnormally pale, and the tiny veins on his body could be seen clearly. Jia Rong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If not for the fact that he was a level 2 arcane master with extremely strong mental strength, he would have been pushed into that interesting things. By Lai Yunxiao. Lai Yunxiao was definitely not feeling well. The burden had exceeded his expectations. After 3 days and 3 nights of running, the mental power of the over 2,000 people had already fallen to an extremely low level. With the aid of his eye technique and the 1,000 illusions formation, he could easily pull over 2,000 people into an illusion. However, the exhaustion was extremely shocking. He had no choice but to end the illusion prematurely and let these people out. As soon as his mental strength was cut off, the entire illusion disappeared. Lai Yunxiao immersed his soul power into the world divine monument, revealing his true form. The golden-colored Great Divine Evolution technique started to appear in the air. Waves of warmth, like sunlight dispersing the coldness, shone on his soul, giving him an indescribable feeling of comfort and nourishment. Lai Yunxiao said to Jia Rong, "Serve me and let me rest in the war chariot. Let them enjoy the happiness of crying." Sometimes, people don't even have the right to cry anymore. Jia Rong was shocked. It turned out that Lai Yunxiao had already weakened to such an extent. Even when he cultivated in seclusion to refine pills, he did not consume so much energy. However, to make over 2,000 people fall into an illusion at the same time, he could not help but shiver. The 2,000 students were both sad and happy. After suffering for most of the night, they finally could not take it anymore, and all of them fell to the ground and fell into a deep sleep. After running around for 3 days and 3 nights, they were completely crushed by the stab of pain in their minds. On the second day, everyone had a sweet dream. In the dream, the world was filled with a fragrant aroma. The sun was bright and beautiful, and the sky was clear for miles. It was indescribably blissful. When they woke up, they realized that it was just like in the dream. A faint fragrance assailed their noses, and it was indescribably pleasant. "Little brats, are all of you awake? Wake up." Jia Rong said angrily with dark circles in his eyes, "Let me burn the purple dragon roaring incense for all of you for an entire night. You guys slept so comfortably." Everyone then realized that there was a pile of firewood beside Jia Rong. He was also holding a cattail leaf fan and fanning the incense over. To have a rank 2 alchemist serve them in their sleep was something that they had never dared to imagine. They were so shocked that they crawled up from the ground. However, everyone hurriedly jumped out of the circle of the formation, not daring to stay inside any longer. The primordial stones that were placed on the formation had all turned into piles of powder. After the primordial energy was used up, they returned to dust. Lai Yunxiao also walked out of the war chariot energetically. All the students looked as if they had seen a devil. One by one, their expressions changed greatly, and their feet involuntarily retreated. Jia Rong's pupils shrank slightly, his heart filled with shock. Last night, he was 100% sure that Lai Yunxiao's soul power had been completely exhausted. However, in just one night, looking at his radiant face, it was clear that he had completely recovered. Wasn't this speed a little too shocking? Lai Yunxiao looked at everyone with a beaming smile. "Did everyone have fun yesterday? Fun your sister. F***CK your ancestors." Over 2,000 people cursed in their hearts, but no one dared to show it. Looking at the smile on Lai Yunxiao's face, everyone felt a gust of cold wind blow over them, and they unconsciously moved back a bit. Zhang Tao's face was also extremely pale. Every time he thought about what had happened in the illusion yesterday, his whole body would tremble. It was practically a nightmare. "Ha, Lai Yunxiao laughed. "I know you must all be cursing at me." However, his face suddenly darkened, his eyes as deep as the sea, and he said word by word, "I don't know what you saw in the illusion, but I can tell you that if you don't have the strength, what you saw in the illusion might actually happen." Zhang Tao only felt a chill run down his spine. He screamed in his heart, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. It's too scary, I can't let what happened in the dream happen. Strength, I need strength." Lai Yunxiao coldly looked at these young faces. Even Lin Yu and Bai Chengfeng, the 2 leaders of the students, were only 2 children in his eyes. A cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Although the illusion is fake, the obsession in your hearts is real. This is how the world is, survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. If you want to live well, if you want to protect that trace of weakness in your heart, you must continue to strengthen yourself and continue to advance on the path of martial arts." He looked at everyone's eyes that seemed to have an additional murderous intent that had not been there before, and immediately smiled in satisfaction. "Therefore, I will use the remaining 5 days to teach you a martial art that will rapidly increase your strength, murderous aura." Jai Meng, who was far away, was also moved and unconsciously walked over. Lai Yunxiao looked at him and said, "The swordsmanship that you practice is agile and graceful, the complete opposite of this murderous aura." But all martial arts in the world are connected to the path, and ultimately it all comes back to the understanding of martial intent. You can use it as a reference, but there is no need to learn it. Chapter 87. Jai Meng listened attentively and watched attentively at the side. Lai Yunxiao explained, "The Murderous Aura Manual is a technique that uses murderous aura to stimulate a person's hidden strength. It first appeared on the battlefield and was discovered by martial artists who researched it and created this technique. The extent to which murderous aura increases your strength is also related to your own level. This technique is divided into two parts. One is to condense murderous aura, and the other is to stimulate your potential. Now, everyone, memorize this mental cultivation technique." He began to dictate on the spot, and all the students recited it silently over and over again. Jai Meng, who was at the side, was greatly shocked. He originally thought that this murderous aura manual was just an ordinary technique, but after listening to the mental cultivation technique, he immediately understood the value of this murderous aura manual. It was simply immeasurable. According to the description of the mental cultivation technique, if a person's murderous aura was strong enough, it was enough to double their strength. Not to mention an individual, if this mental cultivation technique was used to train soldiers, then the strength of an army. He felt a chill in his heart just thinking about it. Looking at Lai Yunxiao's indifferent expression, he was extremely suspicious. Was this really a 15-year-old youth? After Lai Yunxiao finished teaching, he said seriously, "If many people cultivate this murderous aura manual at the same time, their murderous aura can affect each other, layer by layer, and the effect will be multiplied. I hope that after 5 days, when all of you use the murderous aura manual at the same time, your combat strength will double. In order to encourage everyone, when the time comes, the 30 people with the greatest increase in murderous aura will each be rewarded with a level 2 pill that can increase their potential without any side effects." Level 2 pill. Increase potential without any side effects. Everyone's eyes lit up. Level 2 pills were too far away for them. Apart from some aristocratic family disciples, they had never even seen what a level 1 pill looked like. When Jia Rong, who was at the side, heard this, his face instantly turned bitter and dispirited. He knew that these pills were definitely for him to refine again. After Lai Yunxiao finished giving the instructions, he looked at Meng Bai, whose entire body had turned green and revealed a smile. Meng Bai shivered and hurriedly moved to Meng Wu's side. Master, what are you doing?" He was now in awe of Lai Yunxiao. The nightmare in the illusory realm still made him shudder in fear. He. Lai Yunxiao smacked his lips. "I'll borrow the poison in your body to help me break through to the 9 stars warrior realm." More than 2,000 students sat down cross-legged. Each of them tried their best to recall the despairing killing intent they had in the illusion, and slowly condensed their killing intent. Lai Yunxiao ignored Meng Bai's resistance and directly dragged him into the war chariot, beginning to forcefully absorb the poison. Jia Rong began to refine the 1,000-bird pill with a sullen face. Fortunately, after advancing to a Tier 2 alchemist, he was able to refine Tier 2 pills with ease. However, if it was 30 pills, there was still hope for him to refine them overnight. Jai Meng also started to recall the contents of the incantation of killing aura bit by bit, as he closed his eyes and pondered. He faintly felt that the martial intent contained within was the key to his breakthrough. Ever since he became a martial lord, his cultivation had stagnated. However, every step in the martial lord realm was not something a martial great master could compare to, so he was not in a rush. Time slowly passed. 3 days and 3 nights later, Jai Meng's heart seemed to be moved, and his stagnant state seemed to open up slightly. Suddenly, an extremely strong killing intent surged towards him. His heart trembled violently, and he raised his head in shock. He saw that the eyes of more than 2,000 students in front of him were all bloodshot. That killing intent caused each of their hair to emit a faint purplish-black aura, and it began to condense. "This is—" He widened his eyes in shock. In the sky above the 2,000 students, a mass of purplish-black killing intent appeared. It condensed and did not dissipate. It faintly formed a huge finger with mottled scales on it. It flickered with a demonic light, and it made Jaimeng, a martial lord, feel a suffocating feeling of horror. It went straight into his bones. And not bad. To be able to reach this level in 3 days, it seems like the stimulation in the illusion has contributed quite a bit. Lai Yunxiao was already standing behind him. He smiled as he looked at the faintly discernible, terrifying finger in the air. Jaimeng fiercely gulped and said in shock, "Young Master Yun, what is this?" Lai Yunxiao said indifferently, "The killer god's finger condensed from killing intent. It is the strongest profound of the killer intent technique." He stared at the sky and continued, "This killer god's finger is vague and unstable. It has not even reached the most basic level. However, for them to be able to reach this level in 3 days, it is already not bad." "Killer god's finger," Jaimeng muttered in shock. "If this finger were to materialize, how powerful would it be?" "Materialize?" Lai Yunxiao smiled hoarsely. "No one has managed to cultivate it to the point where it can materialize. If one can directly summon the killing god to descend, even a peak ninth heaven martial emperor would be able to kill him with one finger. But how strong would the killing intent need to be? At least tens of thousands of times, or even hundreds of thousands of times. Not to mention normal martial artists, even a powerhouse like Emperor Wu would not be able to do it." Jaimeng heaved a heavy sigh of relief. If someone could really do it, then who in this world could stop them? Lai Yunxiao said, "Let them continue to train. The army will arrive in about 2 days. I will go into the city to look around and get some herbs for Chen Zhen to stabilize his realm." Hearing this, Jia Rong hurried over. "Young Master Yun, take me with you." He had a bitter expression. "I have been refining for 3 days and 3 nights. Take me with you to relax." Me too. Meng Bai also ran over. After staying in this small place in the wilderness for a few days, he was already sick of it. At this moment, his skin was snow-white. The poison had already been completely absorbed by Lai Yunxiao. Lai Yunxiao said, "All right, Jia Rong, Meng Bai, and your sister. The 3 of you will follow me into the city. Jaimeng, you stay here and protect them." Soon, Meng Wu was called out from among the students, and the 4 of them headed for Pyang City. Looking at the 4 disappearing figures, Jaimeng could not hide the shock in his heart. He shook his head with a bitter smile and muttered to himself, "My God, how many days has it been?" Peak 8-star martial artist. Pyang City was the hub of the Tianshui country's east-west route. Its importance was much higher than that of a normal city. At the same time, because of its convenient location, it was also one of the most prosperous cities in the Tianshui country. When entering the city, Lai Yunxiao noticed that people entering and leaving seemed to have to pay money, which surprised him. Soon, the 4 of them were stopped by the guards. 4 people, 200 copper coins each, a total of 800. 1 silver coin was worth 1,000 copper coins. It was not much money, but Jia Rong said coldly, "We have to pay to enter and leave the city. Which law stipulates this?" The guard was stunned for a moment, then said angrily, "Asking you to pay is giving you a chance to enter the city. Looks like you don't want to enter the city anymore. Hurry up and get lost." Suddenly, another guard hurried forward and dragged the guard back. He kept whispering in the guard's ear, and his eyes were sizing up the 4 of them. Probably because the 4 of them were dressed extraordinarily, maybe they were important people. The guard frowned and waved his hand impatiently. Forget it. Go in." Jia Rong was already boiling with anger and was about to explode. However, he was grabbed by Lai Yunxiao, who smiled at the guard and entered the city. "Young Master Yun, why don't you let me teach them a lesson? This is obviously a private fee, which is against the law." Jia Rong said indignantly. Lai Yunxiao said with a smile, "There are many things that violate the law. Can you control them? If the upper beam is crooked, the lower beam will be crooked. The key is not those 2 guards. They are also working hard. Do you think that the money collected is directly pocketed by them? I can guarantee that 99% of it will be handed over to the top." Meng Bai said angrily, "These officials are really hateful." He and Meng Wu had been self-reliant since they were young. The 2 of them made a living on their own, so they naturally understood the severity of these officials' exploitation of the people. Lai Yunxiao said. Even if we intervene, this place will return to its original state after we leave. Moreover, whether it is martial Tao or formula Tao, our minds should be free from the shackles of the world. These things can be left for Qin Yu to slowly change after she ascends the throne. As the four of them spoke, they strolled along the streets of Ainz City. It was indeed a bustling scene, not at all inferior to the capital. Soon, they arrived at the largest medicinal herb store in Ainz City. After entering, they were immediately disappointed. The variety of medicinal herbs inside was far inferior to the capital. After all, the capital was full of talents, and there were many alchemists. However, Ainz City might not even have a single alchemist. Lai Yunxiao frowned and thought for a while. Then he listed a few common medicinal herbs and asked the shopkeeper to prepare 10 portions of each. The shopkeeper took the herbs according to the list and suddenly said in shock, "There are only 8 portions of ancient orchid leaves left. This is the main ingredient for refining body-strengthening medicine, so the demand is great." Lai Yunxiao said, 8 portions it is, wrap them all up. At this moment, 2 people walked in from outside the store. One of them's eyes lit up. He directly strode forward and placed a palm on the ancient orchid leaves, saying loudly, "Shopkeeper, I want all of these ancient orchid leaves. This young master's body-strengthening medicine has just been used up. I was just waiting for these ancient orchid leaves." The shopkeeper's expression changed. He hastily forced a smile and said, "Young Master Wu Guang, it is rare for you to visit our humble store. However, these ancient orchid leaves have already been bought by these customers." Wu Guang's expression changed. He sized up the 4 of them. When he saw Meng Wu, his eyes suddenly lit up. He raised his head and looked at Lai Yunxiao with a condescending gaze. He smiled and said, "Give this ancient orchid leaves and this girl to me. Name a price." Meng Wu was furious. He actually dared to lie and rob a beauty. She was about to rush up, but was stopped by Lai Yunxiao. He laughed involuntarily and said, "All right, the price is negotiable. However, I'm afraid you can't afford it." "Can't afford it?" Wu Guang seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He laughed and said, "Shopkeeper, tell him who I am." The shopkeeper looked at Lai Yunxiao with pity and said timidly, "Sir, young Master Wu Guang is the son of the Lord of Ainz City. This great master Zhang Tai behind him is a high-level arcane refinement apprentice." "Oh," Lai Yunxiao suddenly became interested. "May I know which arcane refinement master this great master Zhang Tai is studying under?" Zhang Tai looked at them with disgust. It seemed that talking to these people would damage his face. He said coldly, "Could it be that you know these arcane refinement masters? There is no harm in telling you. I am Great Master Jia Rong of the Arcane Refinement Guild." Chapter 88. Bang. Under Lai Yunxiao's shocked gaze, Jia Rong fell to the ground. He crawled up with an ashen face and cried, "Young Master Yun, this is a rumor. This is definitely a rumor." He pointed at Zhang Tai and shouted, "I know Jia Rong. Since when did he have a disciple like you?" Zhang Tai was stunned. "Although Grandmaster Jia didn't accept me as a disciple, I am good friends with his disciple, Shi Yuan. However, his disciple, Shi Yuan, and I are good friends. The 2 of us often discuss the art of refinement, so I can be considered as half of Grandmaster Jia's disciple." He looked at the 4 of them suspiciously. "How do you know Grandmaster Jia Rong?" Wu Guang had already lost his patience. "Zhang Tai, why are you talking to these country bumpkins?" He pointed at Lai Yunxiao and said, "How much do you want to sell the ancient orchid leaves and this girl? Hurry up and tell me." Lai Yunxiao's eyes narrowed, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. He sneered, "Cheap, I'll use your heads to exchange for it." "What? How dare you?" Wu Guang was furious. "Do you really know who I am?" Lai Yunxiao said coldly, "Slap him and that grandmaster together." Slap! Jia Rong was the first to jump out. He slapped Wu Guang, then rushed at Zhang Tai and started beating him up. He was a martial warrior, so beating up Zhang Tai was more than enough. He hated young Master Yun for using his name to show off, but he just had to provoke young Master Yun. This greatly reduced young Master Yun's impression of him, and he was instantly furious. The Meng Wu siblings were beating up Wu Guang. Both of them were martial warriors. and after cultivating the killing aura technique, they had a faint, murderous aura that made people shudder. The shopkeeper was stunned. He hurriedly ran over and cried, "Everyone, you can't beat them, you can't beat them. I beg you, please don't beat them anymore." The city lord's son and grandmaster Zhang Tai were beaten up in his little store. This was a huge responsibility. It would be fine if these four were arrested and sent to prison, but if they ran away after beating them up, then the shopkeeper would be completely done for. Therefore, when it hit the two of them, it hurt the shopkeeper's heart. "All right, if you continue, you'll die." Lai Yunxiao saw that it was about time and called for a stop. The three of them fought for a while and spat a few mouthfuls of saliva before leaving with Lai Yunxiao. "Young Master Wu Guang, young Master Wu Guang, are you all right?" The shopkeeper was scared silly. He hurriedly went to the ground to help them up, but he saw two pig heads that were swollen beyond human shape. He cried bitterly in horror, "Which one of you is young Master Wu Guang?" The pig head on the left pointed at himself and said in a hoarse voice, I am." He struggled to take out a signal flare and held it up to the shopkeeper. "Hurry, hurry, send the signal. I want to kill them." The shopkeeper trembled as he picked up the signal flare. He ran to the door and pulled it open. Immediately, a firework soared into the sky. It was a beautiful sight, but the shopkeeper was not in the mood to look at the firework. He only prayed that the people from the city lord's mansion would come quickly. As long as they caught Lai Yunxiao and the other three, he would be fine. Lai Yunxiao suddenly stopped and looked at the firework in the sky. Jia Rong also frowned. "It seems to be released from the medicine shop. I guess trouble is coming." "Trouble?" Lai Yunxiao smiled. He was not a person who liked to look for trouble, but he was not afraid of trouble looking for him. Sure enough, before the four of them walked out of the city, a large number of troops came from all directions and surrounded the four of them. Wu Guang and Zhang Tai were also very fast. They wrapped the pig head tightly with gauze, leaving only the two eyeballs. The leader was a middle-aged general. His eyes were like torches and he looked majestic. He looked down at the four of them and said coldly, "Where did these four little devils come from? Where are your parents?" At a glance, he saw that they were all teenagers around 15 years old. Only Jia Rong was older, in his early 20s, so his words were directed at Jia Rong. As the commander of Paiyang City's guards for many years, Ban Bingbai's eyesight was naturally much better than ordinary people. Although the four of them were dressed well, they could not enter his eyes. The most important thing was that the four of them were martial warriors. One of them was even a peak 8-star martial warrior. A 15-year-old peak 8-star martial warrior. What did this mean? At least this group of teenagers must have a big background. So he did not rashly order to capture them directly. Jia Rong was stunned, and then a trace of black lines appeared on his forehead. He said coldly, "Get lost." Wu Guang flew into a rage. "Commander Ban, why are you talking nonsense with them? Hang them up and beat them to death. Send that woman to my room. I will also let her live a life worse than death." Ban Bingbai's head was dizzy. He really wanted to slap such a hedonistic young master. He did not know how to restrain himself in front of so many people, but as a guard of the city, he could not help himself. He said to Jia Rong with a gloomy face, "Do you know what crime you have committed? If you do not call your lord over, the consequences will be very serious." Jia Rong said coldly with disdain, "If you do not move away, the consequences will be even more serious." Ban Bingbai knew that it was useless to say anything more. He waved his hand, and immediately rows of soldiers drew their weapons and surrounded them. "Wait!" Lai Yunxiao suddenly shouted. "You are bullying us with numbers, right?" Wu Guang's pig head was ferocious as he shouted. "Yes, we are bullying you because you have fewer people. So what? Not satisfied? If you are not satisfied, I will beat you up." Lai Yunxiao nodded slightly. There were many First Origin realm experts among these guards. The commander on the horse was even a martial grandmaster. He was naturally not afraid if he was alone. He could come and go as he pleased. No one could stop him, but Meng Wu and the others were in trouble. He said quietly, "Didn't you want us to call the Lord over? Then wait for 5 minutes." Ban Bingbai waved his hand, and the group of guards immediately stopped. They were orderly and solemnly waiting. It was obvious that they were well-trained. Lai Yunxiao took out a sleeve dart and directly shot it into the sky. Immediately, it exploded into 8 small arrows, bringing with it intense smoke and flames as it flew in all directions. "Cloud-piercing arrow?" Ban Bingbai cried out in shock. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Cold sweat began to appear on his forehead as he looked at the 4 people in shock. He had been in the army before, so he naturally knew the origin of these cloud-piercing arrows. They were the highest-level summoning signal in the army. Each arrow was made of stainless steel and contained a substance called flaming cloud scale powder. When it exploded, it would erupt with intense smoke and light. The 8 small arrows inside the cloud-piercing arrow would shoot out in all directions. No matter the environment, it could accurately locate the target. Although Wu Guang did not know what the cloud-piercing arrow was, he was a little stunned. Suddenly, his eyes lit up with joy. "Commander Ban, kill them! I want this sleeve dart. This thing is much more powerful than the firework that I used to signal for help." Ban Bingbai almost fell off his horse. His face turned green. "Damn it, they have the strongest cloud-piercing arrow in the army. Yours are just firework. How can they be compared? Idiot, this is a big disaster." He immediately judged that the identity of Lai Yunxiao and the other 3 people was not simple. He hurriedly whispered a few words to the guard beside him. The guard accepted the order and rushed toward the city lord's mansion. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the city gate and the ground started to tremble. Run quickly. Who are you people? How dare you break into Ainz City without permission? Quickly run, there is an army attacking the city. Quickly, go and inform the city lord and Commander Ban. The commotion coming from afar startled everyone. Ban Bingbai looked at the calm faces of Lai Yunxiao and the other 3 people. Even the corners of his mouth were slightly raised into a smile. He suddenly understood. His heart sank straight into the abyss. This time it was really over. He had provoked people that he could not afford to provoke. Wu Guang had run amok in Ainz City for many years. Finally, he had kicked an iron plate. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, more than 2,000 students were exuding a strong, murderous aura. All the guards of Ainz City were tightly surrounded. Who are you people?" Wu Guang panicked. He seemed to have understood something. He hurriedly pushed Ban Bingbai and said in fear, "Commander Ban, what should we do?" Ban Bingbai fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His whole body was dripping with cold sweat. When these people surrounded him, the cold, murderous aura made even him, a great martial master, palpitate. What made him feel even colder was that a mountain-like pressure directly locked the space around him. The murderous aura directly penetrated into his bone marrow. He did not dare to move recklessly. He believed that as long as he moved casually, he would immediately die on the spot. An army with more than 2,000 martial warriors, and there were even martial monarchs among them. Oh my God! Who were these 4 people? Could it be a prince? Even if it was a prince, he would not have such a terrifying army. He felt his whole body was stiff. Only sweat flowed down his body. He did not dare to move recklessly. Silence, it was extremely quiet. Although there were thousands of people surrounding them, there was not a trace of sound. There was only the rustling of the cold wind. Seeing that Ban Bingbai was ignoring him, Wu Guang was at a loss of what to do. He became flustered and looked around. He could feel the murderous aura exuding from each and every one of them, making him shudder with fear. Lai Yunxiao finally opened his mouth. "Okay, now we can start playing. Pig Wu, let's start." The moment Lai Yunxiao opened his mouth, Ban Bingbai suddenly felt the pressure around him disappear without a trace. However, his intuition told him that there seemed to be a divine sense locked on him. If he did not behave, he was afraid that he would be killed in an instant. In this situation, Wu Guang did not dare to speak. He was so scared that he lay on the horse and did not dare to raise his head. Ban Bingbai could only straighten his body and jump down from the horse. He did not have that arrogant aura from before. Instead, he said carefully, "Who are you people?" "This is Ainz City. It is protected by the law. How can you mobilize the army so casually?" "The law!" Meng Bai's eyes bulged and he laughed. When you had more people, you talked to us with your fists. Now that we have more people, you want to talk to us about the law, Lai Yunxiao sneered. At first, a few hundred of you wanted to fight the four of us. Now, 2,000 of us want to fight a few hundred of you. According to the ratio, we are at a disadvantage. Commander Ban, let's start. Don't waste time, I am still very busy. Chapter 89. Ban Bingbai's head drooped. He didn't dare to start fighting, not to mention that the martial monarch could kill all of them by himself. These 2,000 soldiers were all martial warriors, and their murderous aura was not something that ordinary soldiers could have. It was obvious that they had experienced countless battles of life and death to cultivate this aura. Fighting with such an army was no doubt courting death. Just when Ban Bingbai was at his wit's end, there was a commotion outside. The city lord had finally arrived. Ban Bingbai finally let out a long sigh. No matter how big the matter was, the city lord would take care of it. Anyway, it was his son who caused trouble. Fortunately, he didn't offend these people. Excuse me, officers and soldiers, excuse me, I am Pyang City Lord Wu Lianshan. A pot-bellied man came in surrounded by several guards. Just as he was about to say a few words, he saw 4 children surrounded in the middle. He was stunned. He didn't know who was the main character and didn't know who to talk to. Dad, you're finally here. Wu Guang fell from his horse and ran to Wu Lianshan's side. He hugged Wu Lianshan and cried. He felt that everything could be solved now that his dad was here. He didn't have to stay in this damned place anymore. It was too scary to be surrounded by a group of ghost people. Dad, it's this group of people? He pointed at Lai Yunxiao and the others and said, Look, they beat me into a pig's head and called so many soldiers to surround us. Dad, you must catch them and hang them up and beat them. The surrounding city guards were all drenched in cold sweat. Even Zhang Tai's eyes revealed a look of fear. Wasn't this foppish young master too idiotic? Couldn't he see the situation clearly? God, if we follow such an idiotic young master, how can we have a future in the future? Beat your pig's head. Wu Lianshan was also speechless. He hastily pretended to be fierce and knocked Wu Guang's pig head. He fiercely reprimanded. You cause trouble everywhere. When we get home, I will teach you a lesson. He didn't know who was in charge, so he cupped his hands towards the 4 people and said, I am the Lord of Pyang City. I didn't teach my son well, so I offended the 4 of you. Please forgive me. Only then did Lai Yunxiao say, It's okay. We're all easy to talk to. It's not a good idea for everyone to gather here, right? Why don't we talk somewhere else? Jia Rong and the others looked at Lai Yunxiao in astonishment, not knowing what he was doing. Now that the army was here, he could do whatever he wanted. What was there to talk about? Wu Lianshan was taken aback. He didn't expect this young man to be the real master. It seemed like he was easy to talk to. Moreover, he was just a kid, so he could be coaxed with some candy. Wu Lianshan was overjoyed. Of course. This way, please come to my residence for a chat. Soon, they became the distinguished guests of the Pyang City Lord's mansion. What shocked Wu Lianshan the most was that the student army of over 2,000 students did not regroup. Instead, they surrounded the entire City Lord manor tightly. Lai Yunxiao drank his fragrant tea and said with a smile, Brother Wu Guang and I don't get to know each other without fighting. Wu Lianshan hurriedly said, Yes. Guang hurry up and pour wine for this brother. He still didn't know Lai Yunxiao's identity. He asked tentatively, Little brother, what's your surname? What position do you hold in the imperial court? Lai Yunxiao looked at Wu Guang, who had a face full of dissatisfaction. He smiled lightly and said, My name is not worth mentioning. It's just that I heard that the war ahead is urgent, so I'm in high spirits and want to lead a group of brothers to protect the country. Wu Lianshan was stunned for a moment. He almost laughed out loud. You bunch of trash also want to go to the front line. He didn't know the strength of these people. He only saw that they looked young. But his face was still full of enthusiasm. He said loudly, Good job. Little brother is really heroic. You're for the country and the people. Guang you have to learn more from this brother. Lai Yunxiao smiled and said, There's no need to learn. I just happened to pass by your city and sparred with brother Wu Guang a few times. It can be considered some fate. At the same time, it's rare for City Lord to have such a patriotic heart. This one has a presumptuous request. Wu Lianshan was stunned. Here comes the main topic. Let's see what he wants to do, he hurriedly said. Quickly say it. We're all for the country and the people. What's there to be polite about? Lai Yunxiao smiled and said, Then I won't stand on ceremony. City Lord has also seen it. We 2,000 people came empty-handed without the slightest preparation, so I want to borrow some rations from City Lord. Borrow rations? Wu Lianshan was stunned. He then mused. This city's reserves of rations are also very short. I'm afraid it's hard to lend. Lai Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and said, Then it's fine to exchange some valuables. We'll go to the other nearby cities and see if we can buy some rations. Wu Lianshan sneered coldly in his heart. He finally got to the point. He pretended to be in a difficult position. Little brother, you rushed to the battlefield to protect the country. Originally, I would also do my best to help. Although this city is a rich and populous place, this city lord is compassionate towards the people. I don't have much savings. How about this? I'll take out 10,000 gold coins from my frugal expenses to help everyone. His words were imposing and awe-inspiring. In his opinion, 10,000 gold coins was more than enough to get rid of a child. Only Ban Bingbai smiled bitterly. Putting everything else aside, the cloud-piercing arrow was worth tens of thousands of gold coins. The city lord's thinking was too simple this time. Lai Yunxiao laughed loudly, and Jia Rong, who was beside him, laughed along with him. The two of them laughed so hard that Wu Lianshan, who was initially filled with confidence, suddenly lost his confidence. Lai Yunxiao smiled and said, City Lord Wu is too generous. We only have 2,000 people. We don't need so many gold coins. I'll just let my people take a little. He whispered a few words into Jia Rong's ear, and Jia Rong walked out with a sneer. Wu Lianshan suddenly panicked and asked, Little brother, what is the meaning of this? Lai Yunxiao smiled and raised his teacup. Nothing, have some tea. Come, City Lord and Commander Ban, let's have some tea. It is indeed a good tea. At this moment, a commotion came from outside. There were all sorts of shouts and the sound of weapons clashing. Soon, many screams came from outside, causing Wu Lianshan to feel a chill down his spine. He quickly gave Ban Bingbai a look. Ban Bingbai shook his head with a bitter smile and whispered into Wu Lianshan's ear, This youth has a martial lord as his subordinate. Ban Bingbai's words were like a bolt of lightning that struck Wu Lianshan's mind, causing it to buzz. This youth has a martial lord as his subordinate. What kind of concept was a martial lord? In the Akwaski kingdom, all martial lords were either bosses of a region, generals of the army, or commanders of the divine guards of the kingdom. Every single one of them was a person who could shake the heavens and earth. Even he, the city lord, had to lower his head in front of them. Such a figure was actually this youth's subordinate. Wu Lianshan suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation and hurriedly said, Little brother, let's talk this out. Isn't this robbery? Robbery? Lai Yunxiao's eyes turned cold and his face immediately darkened. A murderous aura burst out of his eyes. You have to be responsible for your words. Speaking nonsense will kill you. Wu Lianshan's body went cold. When he heard the sounds of fighting and looting outside, he immediately put on a long face and said, Little brother, my residence is really poor. How about this? I'll get someone to gather 100,000 gold coins and give it to you. Slap. Lai Yunxiao slammed the table and broke it. He angrily stood up and said, Wu Lianshan, who do you think I am? I just want to gather some military funds and you're treating me as a robber. Fine, if that's the case, don't blame me for falling out with you. He shouted. Guards! Chen Zhen and Han Bai, who had been waiting outside, immediately rushed in and tied up Wu Lianshan and Wu Guang without any explanation. When Wu Guang saw this, he was so frightened that he started crying. Wu Lianshan was also frightened and hurriedly shouted, Commander Ban! Ban Bingbai was just about to move when a murderous aura locked onto him. Lai Yunxiao said coldly, Anyone who moves will be killed without mercy. What shocked Ban Bingbai was that the fear that made his heart palpitate did not come from the martial lord, but from this youth of about 15 years of age. He instinctively felt that if he moved, this youth would not hesitate to kill him. But he was only an 8-star martial warrior. Why would he have such an absurd intuition? Soon, the Wu father and son were tied up and hung up. Ban Bingbai watched from the side, not daring to move at all. The student army kept running in, piling up boxes of loot on the floor. Soon, they occupied half the hall. Other than large amounts of gold and silver coins, there were also rare treasures, large amounts of Yuan stones, medicinal pellets, profound weapons, and all kinds of cultivation materials. Even Lai Yunxiao was shocked. It wasn't that he had never seen so many valuable things, but the wealth accumulated in a small city lord's residence was actually more than the Lai family's treasury. Han Bai was also shocked and said in shock, "Young Master Yun, a small city lord's residence actually has so much wealth. There are at least hundreds of millions of gold coins. How many people's blood and sweat are they plundering? If we report it, it'll be enough for him to execute 9 generations of his family." "Report? Why should we report it?" Lai Yunxiao feigned ignorance and said, "City Lord Wu is clean and innocent. He's extremely poor. Did any of you see any wealth in his residence?" "No," Chen Zhen hurriedly said. "I didn't see it. Did you?" Meng Bai also shook his head and said, "No, the treasury of the city lord's residence is empty. If you don't believe me, go take a look." "I believe you, I definitely believe you," Chen Zhen chuckled. Wu Lianshan was hung in the air and his mouth was gagged, but he still shouted with all his might, "You can't touch these things or you'll die. These are all the first prince's possessions. If you dare to touch them, your 9 generations of family will be executed." Lai Yunxiao came to a realization. "Oh, no wonder. So it's Qin Yong's. He, then I won't be polite." He lightly pointed and a large amount of Yuan stones and cultivation materials were collected. After leaving behind the treasures, medicinal pellets, and profound weapons, he turned to Meng Wu and said, "Distribute these things to everyone as a reward." Chapter 90. Meng Wu was shocked. She didn't even dare to think about so many precious items. Finally, with the help of a few people, everything was carried outside and distributed. Among them, there were a few rank 2 profound weapons which were immediately divided among Chen Zhen and the others. Everyone had nothing to say and snatched the rest of the items. Those who didn't get any profound weapons or elixirs also received a large amount of money. All of them were extremely excited. Meng Bai snatched 2 second-rank profound weapons. He kept the tiger head saber for himself and gave the green longsword to Meng Wu. Chen Zhen and Han Bai each took a rank 2 profound weapon and couldn't stop smiling. Han Bai pointed at the Wu father and son and said, "Young Master Yun, what should we do with these 2? He made a gesture and said coldly, "Why don't we just kill them? They're the first prince's men anyway, it's pointless to kill them." Wu Lianshan was truly afraid now. Who were these people? They weren't even afraid of the first prince. He begged for mercy, "Little brother, don't kill me, please don't kill me. Take all the items, I don't want them anymore." "Fine, let them go," Lai Yunxiao ordered. It wouldn't be right to take someone's life after taking their hard-earned wealth for so many years. He cheerfully walked to Wu Lianshan and patted his shoulder. "Do your best. I'll come visit you in a few years." Wu Lianshan's body trembled in anger, but he didn't dare to say anything. He watched as Lai Yunxiao and the others wandered away and his eyes spat fire. His face twisted like a servant. "Hurry up and write a letter to the first prince. I want these people to die, die, die. Oh my God, my treasures, my treasures." He sat on the ground and wailed, as if he had lost his soul. The wealth that had been robbed not only included the annual tribute to the first prince, but also the wealth that he had accumulated over the years. This time, he was really penniless. In the end, he didn't even know who the other party was. A servant jogged in and whispered a few words into Wu Lianshan's ear with a look of extreme urgency. Wu Lianshan's eyes lit up, and he instantly jumped up as if he'd been injected with stimulants. He suddenly grabbed the servant and shook him a few times before saying with great joy, "Really? Haha, this is great. The heavens are helping me. Hurry up and report this matter to General Kang, hurry up." Towards the end of his speech, he was practically shouting madly. The servant hurriedly ran out. Wu Lianshan's eyes shone brightly as he laughed heartily. "Ha ha, we're saved now. Just wait for the good show." Wu Guang and Ban Bingbai, who were standing behind him, were puzzled. Lai Yunxiao brought the 2,000-plus student army to tour around the city. All the students were elated. They had become rich in an instant. Their rewards this time were even more than the rewards promised by Prince Qin Yu. Each of them acted like a tycoon as they madly shopped in the city before leaving the city. "Just stay where you are and continue to practice the killing aura incantation." After Lai Yunxiao gave the order, his expression suddenly changed as he looked towards Paiyang City. He saw a cloud of dust, and the ground was trembling. It seemed like a large number of troops were galloping over. Chen Zhen said in shock, "This old man really can't be forgiven. He's already mobilized troops to deal with us." Lai Yunxiao shouted in a deep voice, "Everyone, prepare for battle." He took the lead and looked coldly at the dust that filled the sky. Hanbai frowned and said, "That's not right. Paiyang City only has a city defense force of around 5,000 people. Moreover, they don't have so many war horses. What exactly is this force?" A large number of war horses rushed out of the city gate and spread out in a straight line. Soon, thousands of war horses gathered at the city gate. Each of them looked majestic, and each of them held a standard military spear in their hands. Behind them, there was still a continuous flow of people coming out of the city gate. The entire Paiyang City was trembling as if there was no end to it. Hanbai's expression changed greatly as he said in shock, "Young Master Yun, what do we do? This is definitely a regular army. There are at least hundreds of thousands of people." The whole army was lined up like a dense mass of ants. In the blink of an eye, Lai Yunxiao and the others were surrounded. The mountains and plains were filled with people. At this time, a large flag was finally raised on a chariot. The flag depicted a big golden lion bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. "Golden Lion Legion." Chen Zhen cried out in shock. "Didn't they lose Beidu Town? How can there be so many people?" Hanbai's face was also gloomy. He sneered and said, "Not only are there so many people, but they are also full of spirit and fighting spirit. Look at these war horses and equipment. How does it look like they have been defeated?" Chen Zhen's heart suddenly shook and he said in shock, "Could it be that they fled without fighting?" At this time, on the chariot in front of them, a general sitting on a tiger skin chair holding a glass of wine said lazily, "Who are you people? How dare you come to Paiyang City to rob?" The chariot was decorated extremely luxuriously. There were even 2 enchanting beauties pouring wine and massaging his back. He seemed to be enjoying it very much. Lai Yunxiao said mockingly, "We retreated after suffering a defeat at the front lines. We specially came to Paiyang City to show off our might." Bang! The wine glass in the general's hand was crushed and the fine wine splashed all over the ground. The 2 beauties' beautiful faces paled in fright and they covered their mouths. A boundless, murderous aura suddenly radiated from his body. He slowly stood up from his seat and a faint aura of power spread out from his body. 2 words were softly spat out from his mouth. "You're courting death." The might of a tiger on the general's body combined with the battle formation of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. It was as if a group of mountains surrounded the 2,000 people and squeezed them together. The 2,000 people were all students, and they had never seen such a battle formation before. Their hearts were already beating like drums, and they felt as if there was a heavy burden on their hearts. They were pressed to the point that they could not breathe. The aura of a martial lord suddenly spread out from Jaiming's body. It was as if he was standing proudly in front of the thousands of soldiers and horses. He shook away all of the atmosphere and coldly stared at the chariot. "Martial lord?" The general's face changed. His pupils constricted and he shouted, "Who are you people?" Jaiming laughed coldly. "Kang Liquin, how have you been? Do you really not recognize me?" Kang Liquin frowned and thought. Suddenly his eyes lit up and he said in shock, "You are Jaiming. You have also become a martial lord." He was secretly shocked. When he returned to the capital a year ago, he remembered that Jaiming was only a stage 6 martial master. Now he was actually the same as him and stepped into the 4 symbols realm. Jaiming nodded and said, "I was lucky. What is General Kang doing?" Kang Liquin coldly snorted and reprimanded. Since we are all working for the first prince, why do you want to loot Ainz City and make things difficult for Wu Lianshan? Jaiming smiled faintly and walked behind Lai Yunxiao and said, I am no longer the first prince's man. I am now wholeheartedly following young Master Yun. The first prince's matter has nothing to do with me. What? Kang Liquin's face was full of shock. He originally thought that the leader of these people was Jaiming, but he didn't expect it to be this young martial warrior. His face immediately sank and he shouted, If that is the case, then there is no need for us to be polite. Who is this brat? Lai Yunxiao took out a token and shouted, the chief logistics officer of the Eastern Punitive Expedition. This time we are going to Ainz City to solve the food shortage problem. City Lord Wu Lianshan has given away all of his family's wealth, which is a great merit. This time, when we return, we will definitely report to His Majesty and reward him handsomely. Kang Liquin was startled. He looked at the token in Lai Yunxiao's hand and was surprised that it was not fake. He had just received the news a few days ago that the capital had deployed the Central Army to Kunjin City. He didn't expect to meet them so soon. His eyes gradually revealed a strange look. Eastern Punitive Expedition, why are there only a few of you? Lai Yunxiao laughed coldly and said, The journey of the army is top secret. We were ordered to gather provisions. Kang Liquin's eyes were filled with doubt. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the chariot and whispered in Kang Liquin's ear. Lai Yunxiao's pupils suddenly shrank. The person was looking at him with a sinister smile. It was Lai Yi. Kang Liquin heard this and his eyes flashed with killing intent. He laughed coldly and said, You were ordered to gather provisions, but you actually lied about the military order and robbed an official. You deserve to die. Men, take down this group of people. Anyone who disobeys will be killed. Yes. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers shouted at the same time, reverberating in the wilderness for a distance of 3 miles. The faces of over 2,000 students changed. Lai Yi's face was cold and his lips moved slightly. Lai Yunxiao could see clearly that it was. Let's see how you die this time. He raised his head proudly and a contemptuous smile appeared on his face. He also used the lip sorcery to say, Long time no see, 8th brother. It must be hard to lose an arm, right? Ha. Lai Yi's expression changed drastically. Whether it was 8th brother or broken arm, both of them struck him where it hurt. Suddenly, his neck turned red and his body trembled. The murderous intent in his eyes was enough to melt a person. Kill! The hundreds of thousands of soldiers shouted at the same time. The few thousand cavalrymen at the front took the lead and charged forward. They held their spears on their bodies and charged forward with indomitable will. Lai Yunxiao's face darkened and he ordered, Everyone, spread out and kill them one by one. The 2,000 students instantly calmed down and quickly spread out like birds and beasts. Under the charge of the cavalrymen, staying together was a dead end. Their advantage was that their individual combat ability was far superior to their opponents. As long as they did not let the cavalrymen's advantage be used, they could deal with them easily. Under the charge of thousands of cavalrymen, it was like a cockroach rushing into a swarm of ants. Everyone scattered. They were at least martial warrior level. They were martial artists in the truest sense of the word. There was a world of difference between them and these normal soldiers. Once everyone calmed down, murderous intent rose to the sky. All kinds of bloodthirsty lights flashed and it became a massacre. Tilda. Screams could be heard from the chaos in the wilderness. The students of Jialan Academy were all very skilled. They weaved in and out of the warhorses and killed at lightning speed. Streaks of blood shot out, and a large number of riders fell from their horses after being killed. In just half a cup of tea's time, they were all killed.